want to talk about something that is often overlooked in our fast-paced world, the importance of disciplining our minds to find peace. In a world full of distractions, noise, and constant change, it's easy to feel like peace is just out of reach. But what if I told you that peace isn't something you find out there, but something you create within? The mind is a powerful tool. It's capable of extraordinary things. But like any tool, it requires discipline to be used effectively. Without discipline, the mind can become a battlefield, chaotic, scattered, and overwhelmed by every passing thought, worry, and fear. But here's the thing, the mind doesn't control you, you control your mind. The first step in disciplining your mind to find peace is becoming aware of your thoughts. And our minds are constantly active, churning through an endless stream of thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Often we don't even notice the impact these thoughts have on our mental state. In fact, most of us go through our days on autopilot, unaware of the power of the thoughts we're holding on to. However, the truth is that our thoughts shape our reality. They determine how we feel, how we react to situations, and how we approach life as a whole. If we're not careful, these thoughts can become a source of stress, anxiety, and unrest. Awareness is the key to understanding the relationship between our minds and our peace. When we become aware of what's happening in our minds, we open the door to a deeper understanding of ourselves. We begin to recognize the patterns that drive our emotions, reactions, and behaviors. Instead of simply reacting to every thought, we can take a step back and observe them without judgment. This is where mindfulness comes in, a powerful tool that allows us to break free from the cycle of automatic thinking. Mindfulness involves paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations in the present moment. It's about being fully aware of what's going on inside of us without trying to change or control it. When we practice mindfulness, we stop identifying with every thought that arises. We recognize that thoughts are simply mental events that come and go, and they don't define who we are. By observing them with curiosity and compassion, we begin to detach from the emotional charge they carry. This allows us to create space between our thoughts and our reaction. Becoming aware of our thoughts also means acknowledging when they're negative, self-limiting, or unhelpful. Our minds can easily slip into negative thinking patterns, such as ruminating on past mistakes, worrying about the future, or criticizing ourselves for perceived shortcomings. These thoughts are not only unproductive, but can also be damaging to our mental health. When we become aware of these patterns, we can begin to challenge them. Instead of letting them dictate our state of mind, we can consciously choose to redirect our focus to more constructive thoughts. For example, if we catch ourselves thinking, "I'm not good enough," we can choose to replace that thought with, "I am doing my best, and that is enough." This simple shift in perspective can significantly impact our emotional state. Being aware of our thoughts also means understanding that our minds have a tendency to drift, especially when we are not actively engaging with the present moment. It's easy to get lost in our thoughts about the past or the future, constantly replaying old scenarios or anticipating what might happen next. However, when we are caught up in these thoughts, we miss out on the richness of the present moment. Peace is found in the present, not in the past or future. When we become aware of our tendency to dwell on what's already happened or what's yet to come, we can gently guide our focus back to the here and now, whether it's paying attention to our breath, the sensations in our body, or the world around us. Being present helps us reconnect with peace. The power of awareness lies in its ability to transform our relationship with our thoughts. Rather than letting our thoughts dictate our emotions and actions, we begin to take control of our mental landscape. Awareness allows us to choose how we respond to what's happening in our minds. We no longer have to be at the mercy of our thoughts. Instead, we can observe them, understand them, and decide whether to engage with them or let them pass by. This shift in mindset is the foundation of mental discipline. The more we practice awareness, the more we can train our minds to be peaceful. We can cultivate a state of mental clarity where we are not overwhelmed by every passing thought. This discipline of awareness allows us to find peace not by avoiding difficult emotions or situations, but by facing them with presence and understanding. As we become more attuned to our thoughts, we create space for calm, grounded decision-making, and emotional resilience. And in this space, peace becomes not just a fleeting moment, but a lasting state of mind. The key to disciplining the mind and finding peace lies in the simple act of awareness. When we begin to notice the thoughts we're thinking, we begin to realize that we have the power to choose our mental environment. By practicing awareness, we can transform our relationship with our thoughts, creating a more peaceful and balanced state of mind. The control of our inner dialogue is a crucial aspect of disciplining our minds to find peace. Our inner dialogue is the voice inside our head that constantly talks to us, narrating our experiences, interpreting events, and shaping our perceptions of ourselves and the world. Often, this voice is a reflection of our beliefs, fears, and past experiences, and it has the power to either uplift or undermine us. For many of us, this inner dialogue tends to lean toward the negative, focusing on self-doubt, criticism, and fear. If left unchecked, it can become a source of constant mental turmoil, preventing us from experiencing peace. The first step in controlling our inner dialogue is recognizing the power it has over our emotions and actions. Thoughts and beliefs shape our reality, and our internal narrative is the filter through which we experience the world. For example, if we constantly tell ourselves that we are not good enough or that we'll never succeed, we start to believe those thoughts, and they affect the way we approach challenges. On the other hand, if we replace these negative thoughts with affirmations of strength, self-worth, and capability, our reality shifts to reflect this more positive narrative. This shift in perspective can create a profound sense of inner peace as we no longer feel at odds with ourselves. One of the most effective ways to begin controlling our inner dialogue is to become aware of the thoughts that arise and examine whether they are helpful or harmful. When a negative thought comes up, it's important to pause and assess it. Is it based on fact, or is it a result of fear or insecurity? Often, our negative self-talk is rooted in distorted thinking, such as catastrophizing, overgeneralizing, or engaging in all or nothing thinking. These patterns of thought can distort our perception of reality and make us feel anxious, stressed, or inadequate. By recognizing these patterns, we can begin to challenge them. For instance, if we catch ourselves thinking, "I always mess things up," we can reframe this thought by reminding ourselves of past success. Another key to controlling our inner dialogue is practicing self-compassion. Many people are harder on themselves than they would be on anyone else. We tend to criticize ourselves for mistakes, focus on our flaws, and hold ourselves to impossibly high standards. This harsh inner voice can make us feel unworthy and incapable of finding peace. However, when we practice self-compassion, we treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend. We acknowledge our imperfections, but we don't let them define us. Self-compassion allows us to silence the critical voice inside our heads and replace it with a voice that supports and nurtures us, ultimately fostering a sense of peace. It's also important to remember that our inner dialogue is not fixed. It is something we can change with conscious effort and practice. Just as we would train a muscle, we can train our minds to adopt a more positive and peaceful internal narrative. One way to do this is through affirmations, positive present tense statements that reinforce our self-worth and goals. Repeating affirmations such as, I am capable of handling challenges, or I am deserving of peace and happiness, can reprogram our minds and create a more supportive inner dialogue. Over time, these affirmations become ingrained in our thinking, replacing negative self-talk with empowering beliefs. Mindfulness practices can also help us control our inner dialogue. Mindfulness encourages us to observe our thoughts without judgment and to detach from them. When we become aware of a negative thought, rather than engaging with it or reacting to it, we can simply acknowledge it and let it pass by like a cloud in the sky. This creates space between us and our thoughts, preventing us from becoming overwhelmed by them. Through mindfulness, we learn that we are not our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. This realization allows us to maintain control over our inner dialogue and in turn cultivate peace. The control of our inner dialogue requires practice and patience. Changing long-standing patterns of thought is not something that happens overnight, but with consistent effort, we can retrain our minds to speak to us in a way that promotes peace, confidence, and resilience. It's important to be gentle with ourselves during this process, acknowledging that it's normal to have negative thoughts from time to time. What matters is how we respond to them. When we choose to replace negativity with positivity, self-doubt with self-empowerment, and fear with courage, we create a mental environment that supports peace. Controlling our inner dialogue is a vital part of disciplining our minds and finding peace. By becoming aware of the thoughts we hold, challenging negative patterns, practicing self-compassion, and using tools like affirmations and mindfulness, we can reshape our internal narrative and create a peaceful mental space. With time and effort, we can train our minds to speak to us in a way that aligns with our true worth and brings us closer to the peace. Building positive habits is a critical step in disciplining the mind to find lasting peace. Habits are the foundation of our daily routines, and they shape how we think, feel, and interact with the world. Whether we realize it or not, the habits we develop, both mental and physical, have a profound impact on our mental well-being. The truth is that peace is not something that arrives as a single moment of clarity, but rather as the product of consistent, positive actions that we take every day. When we intentionally cultivate habits that nurture our minds, we create a stable, peaceful environment in which we can thrive. The first step in building positive habits is to recognize that our current habits, whether positive or negative, are the result of repetition. Habits are behaviors that have been repeated so often that they become automatic, ingrained in our routines. If we find ourselves constantly stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, it is often because we've developed habits that contribute to these negative feelings. These might include constantly checking our phones, worrying about future events, or neglecting our physical and emotional needs. The good news is that just as we've developed habits that work against our peace, we have the power to create new ones that work for us. The process of building positive habits requires patience, consistency, and intention. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that change should happen quickly, but real, lasting transformation comes from small, incremental steps taken over time. One of the most effective habits to cultivate is mindfulness or meditation. These practices allow us to slow down and connect with the present moment. By taking just a few minutes each day to practice mindfulness, we can significantly reduce mental clutter, quiet the inner chaos, and create space for peace. Mindfulness is about being fully present, whether we're eating, walking, or simply breathing. It trains the mind to focus on the here and now rather than getting lost in worries about the past or the future. Over time, regular mindfulness practice helps to quiet the noise in our minds and brings a sense of calm and clarity. Another important habit to cultivate is gratitude. Often we focus on what's going wrong in our lives, which leads to a sense of dissatisfaction and stress. But when we intentionally practice gratitude, we shift our focus to what's going well. Taking time each day to reflect on the things we are grateful for, even the small everyday things, can drastically improve our mental state. Gratitude rewires the brain to focus on abundance rather than scarcity, positivity instead of negativity. By building the habit of gratitude, we train our minds to recognize the good in our lives, fostering a sense of peace and contentment. Physical habits also play a key role in disciplining the mind. Exercise is one of the most powerful tools for reducing stress and improving mental clarity. Physical activity releases endorphins, the body's natural feel-good chemicals, which help reduce anxiety and elevate mood. Additionally, exercise helps regulate sleep patterns, improves focus, and increases overall energy levels, all of which contribute to a calmer, more peaceful mind. Whether it's a brisk walk, a yoga session, or a more intense workout, making exercise a regular part of your routine can have a profound impact on your mental well-being. Sleep is another habit that significantly affects our ability to find peace. In today's busy world, many people sacrifice sleep in favor of productivity, but lack of rest can lead to irritability, poor concentration, and increased stress. Prioritizing quality sleep is essential for mental and emotional balance. Developing a bedtime routine that promotes relaxation, such as reading, meditating, or avoiding screens before bed, can help signal to the body that it's time to rest. Adequate sleep not only supports cognitive function, but also strengthens emotional resilience, making it easier to stay calm and composed in challenging situations. In addition to these individual habits, it's important to create a daily routine that promotes mental balance. A consistent routine provides structure, which can be grounding in times of uncertainty. When our days are disorganized or chaotic, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. A routine that includes time for work, self-care, relaxation, and social connection helps bring a sense of order and peace to our lives. Even small changes, such as setting aside time each morning for a moment of quiet reflection, or scheduling a break in the middle of the day, can make a big difference in how we feel mentally and emotionally. Building positive habits is not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about taking small actions each day that align with our values and contribute to our overall well-being. The key is to start with one habit, make it a routine, and then build from there. Over time, these positive habits compound, creating a foundation of peace that supports us through life's ups and downs. And even on the days when things feel out of control, these habits provide a stabilizing force, reminding us that we have the power to create peace in our lives, one action at a time. The habits we build today shape the mental and emotional landscape of tomorrow. By consciously choosing to incorporate habits that nurture our minds, bodies, and spirits, we lay the groundwork for a life of lasting peace. Whether it's through mindfulness, gratitude, sleep, or a balanced routine, each positive habit we cultivate is a step closer to the inner peace we seek, often shapes how we view ourselves and the world. Many of us carry emotional baggage from our pasts, whether it's unresolved grief, guilt over past decisions, or anger toward those who have wronged us. While it's natural to reflect on the past, when we hold on to these emotions, they can hinder our ability to move forward. The weight of past pain, unhealed wounds, and old stories can cloud our judgment and prevent us from experiencing peace in the present moment. Holding on to past regrets or grudges not only keeps us mentally stuck, but also robs us of the energy and focus we need to create the life we desire. Letting go of the past doesn't mean forgetting or dismissing what happened. It means releasing the emotional hold that the past has on us. It's about making the conscious decision to no longer let past events dictate how we feel or act in the present. This can be a challenging process, especially if the past holds painful memories or unresolved emotions. However, the key to finding peace is realizing that we cannot change what has already happened. What we can control is how we respond to it. By practicing forgiveness, whether it's forgiveness of others or self-forgiveness, we release ourselves from the chains of the past. When we forgive, we free ourselves from the mental and emotional burden of carrying anger, resentment, or regret. Learning to let go of future worries means trusting that everything will unfold as it's meant to, without needing to control every outcome. It involves shifting our focus from trying to predict or control the future to embracing uncertainty with confidence. When we release the need to have everything planned out or figured out, we create space for peace. We allow ourselves to experience life as it is, without constantly striving to meet expectations or fearing what might happen. Practicing mindfulness is a key tool in this process. By returning our attention to the present moment, we can reduce anxiety about the future and find peace in the here and now. Letting go of the past and future also means accepting the things we cannot change. It requires us to acknowledge that no matter how much we wish otherwise, some events are beyond our control, whether it's the actions of others, the outcomes of our past decisions, or the unknowns of the future. There are things that we simply cannot influence. Accepting this truth doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to helplessness. Rather, it's about embracing the idea that peace comes when we stop fighting against what is. When we learn to accept the present as it is, without constantly wishing for it to be different, we find peace in the flow of life. One of the most effective ways to let go of the past and future is to practice meditation or deep breathing exercises. These practices help anchor us in the present moment by focusing our attention on our breath or a particular sensation in the body. Through regular meditation, we can train our minds to release thoughts about the past and future and return to the present with ease. This practice teaches us that we don't have to be ruled by our thoughts and worries. We can observe them without attaching to them. By creating space between ourselves and our thoughts, we create room for peace to enter. Let go of the past and future is about relinquishing control and surrendering to the present. It's about realizing that peace is not something we achieve by obsessing over the past or worrying about the future, but something we cultivate by being fully present in the moment. When we stop dwelling on what's already happened or what might happen, we open ourselves to the beauty of the now. We allow ourselves to experience life with a clear mind, a calm heart, and a deep sense of peace. Letting go of the past and future is an essential part of disciplining the mind and finding peace. By releasing the emotional weight of past experiences and relinquishing the need to control the future, we free ourselves to embrace the present moment. Peace is found when we accept life as it comes, without trying to change what cannot be changed. Through mindfulness, acceptance, and self-compassion, we can learn to let go and experience the peace that resides within us, no matter what has happened or what is yet to come. Embracing silence and solitude is a vital yet often overlooked practice in disciplining the mind to find peace. In the fast-paced, noisy world we live in, we are constantly bombarded with stimuli, whether it's the constant chatter of social media, the demands of work, or the noise of daily life. These external distractions, combined with the internal noise of our thoughts, can leave us feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from ourselves. However, when we intentionally create space for silence and solitude, we allow our minds to settle and reconnect with the peace that resides within. In many ways, silence is not just the absence of sound, but a profound opportunity for introspection and clarity. In the quiet, we are able to hear our own thoughts more clearly, to observe the patterns of our mind without the distractions of the outside world. It's in silence that we can hear our true inner voice, which is often drowned out by the noise and busyness of daily life. This inner voice is our intuition, our deeper wisdom, and the part of ourselves that knows what we truly need in order to feel at peace. By giving ourselves permission to embrace silence, we create the space necessary to listen to this inner guidance and make decisions that align with our true selves. Solitude, too, plays an essential role in creating peace. While it's important to connect with others, it's equally important to spend time alone in order to reconnect with ourselves. Solitude allows us to step away from the roles we play in society, whether as a parent, partner, employee, or friend, and simply be. We can be fully ourselves without the need to perform or conform to anyone else's standards. This alone time gives us the opportunity to recharge, reflect, and engage in activities that nurture our well-being, whether that's reading, walking in nature, meditating, or simply being still. The peace that comes from silence and solitude is not just about escaping the world, but about creating a deeper connection with it. In the quiet moments, we become more attuned to the natural world around us. Whether we're sitting in a park, listening to the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, or simply observing the beauty of a sunset, these moments of solitude allow us to appreciate the simple wonders of life that we might otherwise overlook. Nature, in particular, has a calming effect on the mind and body. The stillness of the natural world provides a reminder that peace is always available to us, if only we take the time to notice it. When we embrace silence and solitude, we also create the space to process our emotions and thoughts more effectively. In the hustle and bustle of daily life, we often suppress our feelings or brush them aside in order to keep up with our obligations. However, these emotions don't disappear. They accumulate and can create an internal buildup of stress, anxiety, and tension. Spending time alone in silence allows us to face these emotions head on. Whether it's through journaling, meditation, or simply reflecting, we can process our feelings without judgment or the need to immediately act on them. This emotional clarity helps us release pent-up stress and find a sense of calm within ourselves. It's important to note that embracing silence and solitude does not mean isolating ourselves in a way that leads to loneliness or disconnection. Rather, it's about creating healthy boundaries between ourselves and the external world. It's about choosing when to engage with others and when to step back and recharge. In fact, spending time in solitude can actually improve our relationships with others by helping us better understand ourselves. When we are in touch with our own needs, emotions, and desires, we are better equipped to engage with others in a more authentic and peaceful way. We are less likely to seek validation from others or allow external circumstances to dictate our emotional state. Another key benefit of silence and solitude is that it encourages mindfulness. When we are alone and quiet, we are less likely to be distracted by external forces, allowing us to focus on the present moment. This mindfulness practice helps us to become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, which in turn allows us to respond more thoughtfully to situations rather than react impulsively. By cultivating a mindful attitude during our moments of solitude, we can carry that sense of presence and calm into our interactions with others and into the activities of daily life. Embracing silence and solitude is a powerful tool in disciplining the mind and finding peace. In the quiet, we are able to reconnect with our true selves, process our emotions, and gain clarity about what we need to feel at peace. Silence and solitude offer us the opportunity to experience the world in a more mindful, present way, and to appreciate the simple beauty of life. By regularly making time for silence and solitude, we create the conditions necessary for lasting inner peace. Through these practices, we can learn to quiet the noise of the world and tune into the calm that resides within us. Taking responsibility for our thoughts and actions is one of the most empowering steps we can take toward disciplining the mind and finding peace. Far too often, we fall into the trap of blaming external circumstances or other people for our feelings, reactions, and experiences. When we adopt the mindset that our circumstances dictate our mental state, we give up control over our peace. However, true peace comes from recognizing that we are responsible for how we think, respond, and ultimately navigate the world around us. By embracing this responsibility, we take back our power and create the conditions necessary for lasting peace in our lives. At the core of taking responsibility is understanding that our thoughts shape our reality. Our minds are constantly generating thoughts, both conscious and unconscious, which influence how we perceive the world and how we react to situations. When we blame others or our circumstances for our unhappiness or stress, we are essentially handing over control of our peace to external forces. But when we take responsibility for our thoughts, we recognize that we have the power to choose how we interpret and respond to what happens around us. This shift in mindset is liberating, as it means that no matter what happens, we have the ability to decide how we feel and how we react. One of the key ways to take responsibility for our thoughts is through awareness. Often we are unaware of the constant stream of thoughts running through our minds. These thoughts, if left unchecked, can be negative, self-defeating, or based on false beliefs about ourselves and the world. By practicing mindfulness, we can become more aware of these thoughts and recognize when they are steering us in a negative direction. Once we become aware of our thinking patterns, we can consciously choose to replace unhelpful thoughts with more positive, empowering ones. For example, instead of thinking, "I'm not good enough," we can challenge that thought by reminding ourselves of our strengths and past successes. This shift in thinking takes time and effort, but it ultimately leads to greater peace as we learn to control our inner dialogue rather than letting it control us. Taking responsibility for our thoughts also involves letting go of the habit of overthinking. Overthinking often leads to unnecessary stress, anxiety, and confusion. We become trapped in a cycle of analyzing every possible outcome, replaying past events in our minds, or worrying about what might happen in the future. This mental habit keeps us stuck in a state of unrest. By taking responsibility for our mental state, we can choose to break free from overthinking. One way to do this is by practicing the art of letting go, accepting that we cannot control every situation or predict every outcome. Instead of constantly analyzing or trying to figure things out, we can learn to trust that everything will unfold as it's meant to. This allows us to free our minds from the burden of unnecessary worry and focus on the present moment. In addition to our thoughts, taking responsibility for our actions is equally important. Our actions are a reflection of our inner state, and how we behave in the world directly impacts our peace of mind. Often we blame others for our reactions or behaviors. We might think, "I wouldn't have yelled if they hadn't provoked me," or "I only said that because they made me angry." While it's true that others can trigger our emotions, ultimately we are the ones responsible for how we act in response to those triggers. By taking responsibility for our actions, we recognize that we have the power to choose our responses. If we are angry, for example, we can choose to pause, take a deep breath, and respond with calmness rather than reacting impulsively. This ability to choose our actions is empowering and contributes to a sense of peace because it means we no longer feel like victims of our emotions or external circumstances. Taking responsibility for our actions also involves owning up to our mistakes and making amends when necessary. When we take responsibility for our missteps, we release ourselves from the burden of guilt and shame. We stop blaming others or making excuses, and instead we acknowledge our part in the situation. By owning our actions and striving to improve, we build trust with ourselves and others, which fosters a sense of peace and harmony in our relationships. Another aspect of taking responsibility for our peace is creating healthy boundaries. Often we allow other people's actions, demands, or opinions to affect our mental and emotional well-being. We might say yes when we really mean no, or let others take advantage of our time and energy. This can lead to resentment, burnout, and inner conflict. By setting clear boundaries, we take responsibility for our well-being. We acknowledge that it's okay to say no when something doesn't align with our values or needs. By doing so, we protect our mental peace and create a more balanced, fulfilling life. Taking responsibility for our thoughts, actions, and well-being also requires self-compassion. It's easy to be hard on ourselves when we fall short or make mistakes, but self-compassion allows us to approach ourselves with kindness and understanding rather than self-criticism. When we take responsibility for our mental state, we do so with the understanding that we are human and that it's okay to have moments of imperfection. Instead of berating ourselves, we can offer ourselves the same grace we would offer a friend. This compassionate approach fosters inner peace because it helps us move forward without dwelling on past errors. Taking responsibility for thoughts and actions is an essential part of disciplining the mind and finding peace. When we recognize that we're in control of how we think, react, and behave, we empower ourselves to create a peaceful inner environment. By practicing this, taking responsibility is not about perfection. It's about acknowledging our power to choose how we experience life. When we embrace this responsibility, we unlock the peace that resides within us and create a more harmonious, fulfilling life.